Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our next literacy lesson. So today we're going to be practicing one of the skills that we're going to need to be able to use when we're writing our recount over the next few weeks. So I'm going to jump in this morning and share my screen with you. What we're going to do first, please, is there are some sentences on the board. Okay, and I'd like you to replace the adjectives and verbs in these sentences, so hungry and ran, for example, to be a bit more powerful, a bit more interesting. Okay, so what synonyms can you think of for the word for hungry that's a bit stronger? What synonyms can you think of for the word ran? Can you rewrite these sentences in your book using more powerful verbs and adjectives? Once you've done that, come back and press play. Okay, well, hopefully you've had a chance to rewrite those. Maybe, for example, instead of hungry boy, you could change it to the starving boy sprinted to the lunch hall. That makes it sound a little bit more powerful. Instead of the hot fire, you could say the burning hot fire, or the burning fire. And I don't want to use burned again because I've already got it now. I could say destroyed. Okay, the burning hot fire destroyed the buildings. I'm sure if you had a different one, that's fine. And maybe in my last sentence, I've got scared. I ran down the dark alleyway. Okay, maybe I could change each of those words to terrified. I threw myself rather than I ran. I threw myself, I hurtled, I sprinted down the, what words can you think of for dark? The pitch black. Way more scary. Pitch black alleyway. Okay? So don't worry if you got something different to mine. It's just a warm-up activity to get ourselves ready for what we're doing today, which is describing. So we're going to be describing settings today, and we're going to do that using our 5 senses: our sight, our ears, what could we smell, what could we touch or feel, and maybe a little bit what could we taste, a bit less so of that one. So let's have a look at why is description so good? Like, why is it so important? All right, so I've got 2 examples of paragraphs here, and I've decided already, I've told you, that the second paragraph is much more effective, and we're going to have a look at why. So let me read the first paragraph to you. It says, I could see people running in all directions, and I could hear a lot of screaming. I saw the huge mass of water getting closer, with palm trees, beach chairs, and hotel doors twirling around in it. I could hear it getting louder and louder. It was as loud as a bomb going off. Okay, and having a look at this second one, let me just move that. It says, there was chaos. People were darting in all directions, and there was a lot of screaming. We were like ants scurrying around, looking for anything that would protect us from the savage wave that wanted to wipe us off the face of the earth. Looking behind, I saw the mass of water roaring closer. Palm trees, beach chairs, hotel doors were twirling around as the deadly wave flattened everything around us. The noise was deafening. I literally ran for my life, but I felt hopeless as I started to feel water around my ankles. So, if you can please pause the video, I'd like you to ideally talk to somebody. So whether it's somebody in your house you can talk to, somebody nearby. If you're in community classroom, you can pause the video and discuss with a partner. If there's nobody that you could talk to, just thinking to yourself, why is the second one better? Okay, so pause the video, have a think or a discuss, and come back once you have done that. Okay, so hopefully you were discussing about, well, in the second paragraph, there's a lot more description using more of the senses. So for example, in the first one, it only talks about what you can see and hear. You can see the mass of water and you can hear the mass of water. Okay, it was as loud as a bomb going off. Now, that's great, but it doesn't really get me to feel like I'm there. Whereas here, I've got a short, sharp sentence that starts with, there was chaos. Already in my mind, I'm like, oh my goodness, everything's a bit overwhelming. People were darting in all directions. So those powerful verbs that really show sort of like the intention. They're not just running around there, darting like it's quick, sharp movement in all directions. There's lots of screaming. So they have the sounds that you can hear. You can see the person's telling you what you can see, a savage wave, but also what you could feel. I started to feel water around my ankles. So having a bit of that touch, okay? So using more of our senses really helps the reader paint a picture in their own mind. They're now visualizing it. The writing here is also a bit more dramatic. We're using powerful verbs like roaring closer, deafening, okay? I literally ran for my life. So using that a bit of hyperbole almost over the top, but actually in this case it's not really over the top if you're running away from a tsunami, okay? So we're going to be practicing how do we write a setting today using our senses to make the reader feel like they are there themselves, that they're experiencing it. So the first activity we have this morning is we're going to be looking at some videos of an earthquake, okay? Earthquakes happening around the world. And we're going to be writing down what would you be seeing, hearing, feeling and smelling. Now, before we watch the video, you have a worksheet like this. It's attached to our daily sheet today. You can print that out, okay? If you don't have a printer at home, that's perfectly fine. You're just going to draw a table in your book. One section titled See, one section titled Hear, one section titled Touch, and one section titled Smell, okay? So let me just pop over. I've printed that here. So in your book, you can just draw a table, or you could just write notes under. You could have something like see, hear, feel, and just leave some space to make your notes, okay? You can either make a table or write it into your book. So with that sheet or in your book, what we're going to be doing is having a look at a video of an earthquake or earthquakes happening around the world. And we're going to be making notes of things that we can see. Okay, so as you go through, you might make notes. I've already done the first one for you. For example, you will see people running. You would imagine you can hear people screaming. You could feel the earth shaking underneath your feet. You would be able to smell the smell of a fire because things tend to catch on fire when they break. Okay, so what we're going to do, let me come back to my video. So this is the video here. Now, this is attached to the daily worksheet for you today, okay? So there is a link on the daily sheet that you need to go and watch called Top Natural Disasters, okay? And as you're watching that video, you're going to fill in this sheet. So I'm going to show you now, okay? So I'm going to press play, and we're going to watch a little bit together, and then it's going to be your turn. So what can I see? All right, so I'm watching, and then everything's fine. Then all of a sudden, you see people start panicking. Everything's shaking, the cars are stopping, people are running into the road. I'm going to pause it here. Oh, coming across to my worksheet. Okay, so I've got people running, but I've also got people move into the road. Okay. Can't hear anything yet. What would I be able to feel? Already got the earth is shaking violently. Can't smell anything yet. So I'm going to go back to the video and press play. And just go, oh, goodness me. A whole building just fell down. So coming back to my sheet, I'm going to write building collapse. Collapses. What would I hear? Well, there'd definitely be screaming, but I would also hear the building breaking. You'd probably be able to hear that. So maybe like cement cracking, or things, or bricks hitting the ground. What would I feel? I would probably feel, what else? A tremor as the ground does that. What else? Maybe I would also feel, because if I go back and have a look, I can see lots of people holding on to each other, okay? Oops, sorry, I'm going to come back and I say people holding onto me. I might just put a little dot so I know they're separate points. What would I smell? Right, well, there's a load of dust now, so I could probably smell dust from fallen building. Okay, I'm going to put my little dot. So I'm just, as I'm going through in my book or on the worksheet, I'm going to write down as many different things that I can think of that I would see, hear, feel, or smell. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do now is pause the video, go to the link that's on the daily sheet that's called Top 10 Natural Disasters, I think is what I've called it. Please go and watch that video. You can take as long as you need. And then once you've written or filled in the sheet as much as you possibly can, I'd like you to come back and press play. All right, so off you go. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you've had a chance to fill in that worksheet and you've got lots of different ideas. But let's have a look at some of the things that you might have put on your worksheet. Maybe you don't have all of them, that's absolutely fine. But maybe you've got things like people running, buildings falling, or things falling over, because in some of the videos you saw like products from the shelves fell down, cars bouncing, cracking in the walls or cracking in the floor. Things you might hear would be screaming, crying, banging. You can actually hear the ground shaking. It's very scary kind of sound, I must say. You would hear car alarms going off. You might feel the earth shaking or tremors. You might feel the ground buckling, feel people grabbing onto you. You could feel the dust, like when the building collapses and that air hits you. You would feel debris, so things flying through the air as the buildings fall down. What might you smell? You might smell the fires, the dust from the buildings. You might just find it hard to breathe, okay? So there's just some examples. You don't have to have them all. That's absolutely fine if you didn't, okay? But if you really struggled, I'd like you to write down some of these, please. All right. So what are we going to do with these lovely bits of information about what it would feel like in an earthquake? So we're going to use this to turn it into a paragraph. So we're going to write one paragraph as though you were in that earthquake. It's not a long rambling story. It's one just describing what's happening around you. So at the moment, I've got things like the buildings crumbling, concrete ripping, the ground shaking. Oh, maybe you could smell sewage. Sewage is obviously what goes through our toilets. If the pipes break, that comes out onto the street. Maybe you could smell that. Absolutely disgusting. But that is something that happens during an earthquake. So I'm going to take these and turn them into a paragraph, okay? So each of these is a short description. It's just really a describing word. It's either an adjective or it's a verb, okay? So we need to put these into sentences that make sense. Now, when we are writing, we want to be writing in past tense, okay? Like I thought something would happen, not I am thinking it's about to fall down. I thought. So I'm going to turn these into a paragraph. So I'm going to choose, I'm not going to write all of them. I don't want to go over the top, long-winded. I'm going to choose some of them. So I might choose, for example, the earth shaking is something I'm going to use. I might talk about the screaming is a good one. Maybe about the building falling down, since that's the little video that I saw. Maybe about the dust. So I'm just picking a few that I'm going to write about. I'm going to turn these into full sentences. So in your book, date please. And we're writing on every second line. So I'm going to start with the earth shook, past tense. Not the earth shakes, the earth shook, not shaking. So violently. The earth shook so violently that I thought all the buildings would collapse around me. Okay, so I've done the earth shaking, okay? I'm happy with that, okay? Now I'm going to go on to maybe what I can hear. So I don't want to do the earth shaking, forceful tremors, the ground buckling, because let's just feel. I want to mix it up. I want to feel it, hear it, see it, smell it, see it, hear it. Mix it up. Don't just go for the same type of sense every single time, okay? I could hear, past tense again, I could hear people screaming all around me. Okay, so they don't have to be super long sentences, but maybe you could use a conjunction here to make the sentence a little bit longer. So I could hear people screaming all around me and running for safety. Okay, right, so I've done screaming. I'm going to tick that one off. I'm happy with it. And now I'm going to be more, maybe now the building's going to fall over. Okay, so then, nice fronted adverbial, then, oh, maybe a double fronted adverbial, suddenly, like a good double fronted adverbial, then suddenly a building in front of me collapsed. I've already used collapsed. Maybe crumbled. That's a nice description, like you can imagine it crumbling down bit by bit. Crumbles to the ground. Okay, and I might, I've done that, so I'm just going to tick off building. I might combine that sentence with the dust, because those things sort of happened at the same time in that video that I watched. The building fell and the dust billowed out. Then suddenly a building in front of me crumbled to the ground as, lovely conjunction there, joining this bit of information about the dust, as a huge cloud of dust and debris. Debris is just things sort of flying through the air that's sort of left over. So if the building collapses and a bit of rock goes flying through the air, you would call that debris. Okay, as dust and debris shot into the sky. Full stop. Right, I've done my dust. So I've described what's happening. I've got the earth shook so violently that I thought all the buildings would collapse around me. I could hear people screaming all around me. Oh, maybe I'll change that later. Around me. It's a bit same. I'm running for safety. Then suddenly a building in front of me crumbled to the ground as a huge cloud of dust and debris shot into the sky. So the last thing I want to add to my paragraph or my description is, how was I feeling? Okay, why? And if I was feeling scared, why was I feeling scared? So I'm just going to do one more sense. I think I'm going to do this one, another a bit about how I was feeling. It was hard to breathe. Leave that as a short, sharp sentence to show that I'm scared. It was hard to breathe. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Okay, we'll stop. Right, I'm going to leave it there. It is one paragraph describing being in an earthquake. It's not a long story. I'm not going to write about how I escaped and eventually it stopped and then I found that one of my friends had been crushed under the building and a long... No, it is a one paragraph describing what is happening using some, not all, some of the things that you wrote down, please. So I'm going to pop it onto this screen here. If you could please pause the video, and I'd like you to write one paragraph describing being in an earthquake using one thing from each of those boxes each sentence, please. Once you've done that, come back and press play for our editing. Okay, well, hopefully, let me just grab my pen. Hopefully, you've now written one paragraph. What we're going to do together is just edit our paragraph, okay? Because we can always improve our work. So, first of all, I'm going to read it and check it. Now, I already did that, and I noticed that I'd repeated myself all around me. Like, it's just a bit same, okay? So, I'm going to change one of those. So I could maybe change the earth shook so violently that I thought all the buildings would collapse and kill us all. Or I could change this one and do, I could hear people screaming everywhere. Okay, for example. So it doesn't matter which one I change. Collapse. Let me get my ruler. Make it nice and neat. Collapse and kill us all. Okay, so I've added that, makes it a bit better. I could hear people screaming around me and running for safety. I'm just thinking that running is not like the strongest word I could use, so I might actually change running to be something a little bit more, maybe darting, dashing, sprinting, hurtling. There's so many words, okay? So I'm just going to put dashing. Just sounds a little bit more dramatic, like I know that they're desperate to get out of there. Then suddenly a building in front of me crumbled to the ground as a huge cloud of dust and debris shot into the sky. Could maybe change huge to like an enormous, and large is a bit of a less good word. So enormous, I actually can't think of another word, maybe you can. So maybe I could change that, of dust and debris shot into the sky. It was hard to breathe. I could feel my heart. Again, maybe I could change pounding, okay, to sprinting in my chest. Beating a tattoo in my chest. That means like it's beating so hard it leaves a permanent mark, okay? So I could change any one of those. I'm going to do that one because it's just such a nice phrase. My heart beating a tattoo. When it presses so hard into you, it's like you have a permanent tattoo, a permanent mark. Okay, so now that I've edited my paragraph, I think it's much better. So I'd like you to go back to your work, please. I'd like you to edit your paragraph. Once you've done that, please take a photo, put it up on Seesaw so that your teacher can give you some feedback. That is the end of our lesson today. I hope you have enjoyed the lesson. Tomorrow we will be moving on to another skill that we're going to need to write recounts, but I hope you've enjoyed today's lesson and I'll see you tomorrow. Have a lovely day. Bye.